Well, constitutional expert and lawyer Anne Twomey is warning the government's proposed misinformation bill risks the very freedoms that it wants to protect. She warns that the draft bill is virtually impossible to properly implement. She says it will seriously risk undermining free speech in Australia. She calls it a fiasco. The Shadow Minister for Communications, David Coleman, joins me now. David, thank you very much for your time. Look, you've been campaigning against this proposed legislation from the start. What did you make of the concerns expressed by the professor?
Well, look, it's just another day, another disaster for the Albanese government on this misinformation bill. I mean, this is a horror movie for the government, and barely a day passes without someone smashing it. And what Professor Twomey said is absolutely right. She said it's unworkable, that the bill doesn't make sense, that it would have a chilling impact on free speech. And she also says, really importantly, Sharri, that the professional news media, so organisations like Sky News, would get swept up in the way this bill works as well. So this bill should be torn up into little pieces, thrown in the bin. It should never have been introduced by the Albanese government, and it is a disaster for them.
It's interesting because we were the first, my program was the very first to criticise this legislation. You came on the show, criticised it. But since then, we've seen the left-wing media union, we've seen left-wing groups, human rights groups, basically everybody has come out and expressed serious concerns with aspects of the legislation. Why is the government persisting with it? And do you think that the minister will realise that it has gone too far?
Well, the minister should just, be honest, just say, look, I got this terribly wrong. I made a terrible mistake. I'm sorry. I'm withdrawing the bill. It's the only solution here. I mean, it takes a special sort of skill to unite pretty much every part of the Australian political spectrum against you, and that's what this minister has done. It's an embarrassment. And how on earth this bill was put out, I don't understand, because if you'd read this bill, how could you put out a bill that says if the government authorises something, it can't be misinformation, but if someone criticises the government, that can be misinformation? That's what they did.
It's such a dangerous area for a government entity to be getting involved in. Now, David, I want to talk to you about these comments from Marcia Langton. We've played them exclusively on the show tonight. She's accused the No campaign of racism and sheer stupidity. Have a look.
Every time the No case raises one of their arguments, if you start pulling it apart, you get down to base racism. I'm sorry to say it, but that's where it lands. Or just sheer stupidity.
Now, this video was posted by the local politician Don Punch in WA. We played it on air for the first time tonight. It has now been taken down and removed. David, what's your response to Marcia Langton's comments and now the fact that there seems to be an attempt to hide this video?
Well, look, obviously completely disagree with those comments, Sharri. There are many sensible reasons to have grave concerns about the voice referendum proposal, and to suggest that people who are voting no are doing so because they're racist or they're stupid is offensive. There are many Australians of goodwill who are opposed to this referendum. Equally, there are other Australians of goodwill who are supportive of it. But what we've got to do in this country is have sensible debates that don't seek to, personalise issues or demonise people for having a particular point of view, because in a democracy, you're allowed to have a view. And I don't think it's appropriate to characterise people who are on the no side of this debate as, as racist or stupid.
Do you think racism is playing a role in the debate, or do you think that the referendum is putting a focus on race that perhaps we haven't had before?
Look, I think that the referendum process that Mr Albanese has embarked on hasn't been a good one for the country. I think a process that was uplifting, that the vast majority of Australians could have got behind, about recognition of Indigenous Australians, would have been a great moment for the country. It would have been overwhelmingly supported, and that's what he should have done. But he decided to go down this path, and you know, unfortunately... Sorry, Sharri.
No, I was just saying we're about to be out of time, but David Coleman, thank you so much for your insights tonight.